returned from the funeral with my chest tightening as though a fist had gripped my ribs. Each breath felt sharp, shallow, and urgent. I stood frozen on my parents' porch, one hand hovering to knock, the other clutching a thick envelope that could change everything. Inside was a truth so powerful it could tear the family apart, 2 sprawling ranches and a modern house in the city, left to me by my grandfather in secret. I had kept this knowledge close for months, sworn to silence. But now, as my mother's voice filtered through the front door, the air around me seemed to turn to ice. The house hadn't changed since I'd left for basic training years ago. The white paint on the railing flaked, wind chimes rattled gently, and the lace curtains remained, stubbornly unwashed, as if time itself had forgotten to move inside these walls. I, however, was not the same. I had just buried the only man in this family who had ever seen more in me than just a label: the reckless, lost child, the soldier who ran off in pursuit of duty. The funeral had been somber, unremarkable in its brevity, the chapel small, its air thick with old wood and dust. I'd stood rigid in my uniform, ribbons pinned neatly, hands pressed together to control the tremor that grief always found a way to sneak past. Afterwards, my grandfather's attorney had handed me the envelope. "Keep this safe," he said quietly. I hadn't opened it yet. I already knew its contents. I had learned the full story on late-night calls when I was stationed thousands of miles away. Grandpa trusted me with what no one else could handle. "You understand responsibility," he had said, and silence. Now that same silence cocooned me as I heard voices through the closed door. My mother's first, calm but sharp, calculating. My father's clipped, irritated. My siblings murmuring among themselves, carefully calibrating their tones. I felt a chill settle deep in my chest. They weren't talking about grief or about me. They were talking about control, guardianship, temporary oversight, keeping me from accessing what was rightfully mine. Their plan unfolded in casual, deadly precision. The family I had returned to had become a trap. My fingers gripped the envelope harder. I could knock, confront them, throw the truth in their faces. But my grandfather's voice echoed in my mind. Silence isn't weakness. Timing is everything. I drew a slow, deliberate breath and stepped inside as if I were just another exhausted, grieving child. My mother rushed toward me with a warm, rehearsed concern. "You must be so tired," she cooed. My father nodded solemnly. My siblings watched, vigilant. I sagged into their expectations, letting them believe they still held the reins. Inside, though, my mind was already plotting. I sat on the couch, hands folded, boots planted, expression empty, a portrait of vulnerability they thought they had cornered. My mother hovered, offering water, fluffing pillows, her gestures precise, methodical, condescending. My father observed, calculating, his quiet assessment sharper than any spoken accusation. My siblings circled, each playing their role in the orchestration. They asked about my drive, my unit, whether I slept, whether I felt on edge. Gentle questions, all designed to map my behavior like a blueprint. As I listened, memories resurfaced, the 17-year-old girl standing in this very living room, announcing enlistment to tears of fear rather than pride, laughed at by siblings, ignored by a father's disappointment. The military had taught me discipline, accountability, clarity. Here, nothing counted. I had returned to the label they had always assigned me: the problem child, the one who couldn't be trusted, the one who needed to be contained. That night, I was escorted to the guest room, a familiar ritual: clean sheets, no lock, my phone charging out of reach. I lay there, the envelope pressed to my chest, letting the weight of my secret settle into something sharp and steady. The house whispered around me, pipes, floorboards, the rhythm of people unaware they were being observed. I made a quiet promise. I would let them think they had me, right up until the moment it cost them everything. Sleep evaded me. I listened. At 2 a.m., I heard them whisper, plotting, strategizing. They thought grief had softened me, that my authority could be quietly stripped. I welcomed the challenge. Fear had burned away, leaving focus. I dressed in plain clothes at dawn, trading uniform for jeans and a sweatshirt. I practiced the expression they expected: tired, fragile, compliant. Breakfast was oatmeal, thin and insipid. My mother watched every bite. My father asked casual questions, eyes flicking, nodding. My siblings measured my reactions. By mid-morning, the pattern was clear. Surveillance under the guise of concern. At exactly 10, the doorbell rang. Dr. Collins arrived, the professional poised to evaluate me, accompanied by another man whose calm precision masked intent. They assumed authority. They assumed compliance. I let them step into the trap they'd built, but I didn't flinch. Questions came, probes designed to elicit weakness. I answered deliberately, slowly enough to appear overwhelmed without revealing clarity. The moment came when I simply said, "This is guardianship," numbing the threat they were attempting to fabricate. The room froze. I had forced the truth into light. I reminded the doctor that this was a ruse, no consent, no emergency, no authority. He left quietly, leaving my family in stunned silence. I revealed the envelope. Grandpa's legacy, 2 working ranches, a city home. Shock rippled through them. The scales tipped. They had assumed power, I reclaimed it. I didn't share documents, numbers, details. I only revealed enough to assert control, to establish clarity. Exhausted, I feigned weariness, letting their relief cover the truth of my vigilance. The days that followed were a careful dance. I played along, smiled, accepted small courtesies while noting every movement, every subtle shift. Missing mail, relocated keys, orchestrated concern, I cataloged it all. Each interaction became data, each gesture a thread in the net I was quietly weaving. At 3:12 a.m., I used the saved number Grandpa had insisted I keep, contacting my counsel. Trusts were activated. Income streams redirected. Properties secured. Nothing could be touched without my consent. Confrontation was unnecessary. The law, timing, preparation, they were the weapons I wielded quietly. I didn't sneak, didn't flee. I moved decisively, slowly, deliberately. When the professionals arrived to enforce the false guardianship, I met them with documentation, clarity, and calm. They left my family seething, powerless. I claimed the house, the ranches, my inheritance, but more importantly, I claimed my autonomy. I established boundaries, communicated them in writing, refused to engage in power games disguised as concern. The family's attempts at manipulation became transparent, impotent. Each message, each call, each feigned kindness was met with strategic calm. Weeks became months. I organized the properties responsibly, just as Grandpa had trusted me to do. Managers were hired, systems implemented, income tracked. I volunteered to help veterans navigate financial abuse, turning experience into guidance for others. I lived deliberately, fully on my terms. The porch, the guest room, the envelope, all reminders of the moment control was stolen and reclaimed. Family isn't always those who share blood. Love isn't measured in compliance or signatures. Concern isn't justification for coercion. Sometimes strength is quiet. Sometimes it's preparation. Sometimes it's walking away without closing the door loudly. I understood at last that refusing to play the role assigned to me was not defiance. It was survival. On my birthday, I visited Grandpa's grave alone. I thanked him not for property, but for trust. I had learned that clarity is far more powerful than rage, that planning outweighs confrontation, and that the bravest action can be leaving with dignity intact. I moved into the city house quietly. I managed the ranches diligently. I set boundaries, enforced them, and let the world adjust. Messages came, apologies, excuses, arguments. I didn't respond except when necessary to maintain order. Life, once fraught with manipulation, became mine to navigate. Peace arrived not in the absence of conflict, but in the mastery of preparation.